It was a Friday afternoon, just like any other. I had just come back from work, ready to kick back with my dogs and maybe order some takeout. But as I was about to settle in, there was a knock on the door that would change my life forever. I remember opening the door, expecting it to be a neighbor or maybe a package I forgot I ordered. Instead, there were two police officers standing there, serious expressions on their faces. My first thought was, what did I do? Did something happen to someone I know? But nothing could have prepared me for what they said next. "Sir, we need to talk to you about a daughter." My mind went blank. A daughter? Me? That didn't make any sense. I told them they must have the wrong person. I have never been a father, never even close to it. But they insisted and asked if I knew a woman named Kelly. The name hit me like a ton of bricks. Kelly. We dated when we were teenagers, young and dumb, and she was the first girl I ever really loved. But one day she broke it off without a word, and that was the last I heard of her. Until now. The officers explained that Kelly had been arrested for drug-related charges, and when they asked her who could take care of her daughter, she told them I was the father. They said Kelly was adamant, so they needed to follow up. At that moment, everything felt like it was spinning out of control. How could I have a daughter and not know about her for 15 years? A million thoughts raced through my mind. Was this some kind of scam? But when they mentioned a paternity test, I realized this was serious. I couldn't ignore this. They handed me some paperwork and said they needed my cooperation. If I really was her father, then this girl, my daughter, needed a place to stay, and fast. Her mother was going to prison, and there was no one else to take her in. I don't know how long I stood there, just staring at those papers. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. One minute, I was just a guy with a quiet life and a couple of dogs. The next, I was being told I had a teenage daughter who had been out there somewhere all this time. After the police left, I sat down on the couch, completely numb. My thoughts were all over the place. I mean, how do you process something like that? How do you go from being nobody's father to suddenly being responsible for a 15-year-old girl you've never met? I kept asking myself if I was ready for this, or if I could even do it. But the thing is, ready or not, she was coming, and I had to figure out how to be the father she needed. So that was it. I had a daughter, and in less than 24 hours she was going to be living with me. The quiet life I had known was over in an instant, replaced by a reality I never saw coming. The day Kelly arrived, I was a nervous wreck. I had spent the entire night before just staring at the ceiling, trying to wrap my head around what was about to happen. I barely knew what I was doing, and I had no idea what to expect. I mean, how do you suddenly become a dad to a teenager? What was she like? Would she hate me? Could I even do this? I tried to prepare as best as I could. I cleaned up the spare bedroom, which had basically been a storage room until that morning. I threw in some basic furniture, nothing too flashy because I didn't want to overwhelm her. Honestly, I just didn't know what she would need or want, so I kept it simple: a bed, a dresser, and some space for her to make it her own if she wanted to. I stood there for a good 10 minutes, just looking around and wondering if it was enough. When the social worker finally brought her to my place, my heart was pounding. Kelly stepped inside, and the first thing I noticed was how small she looked. She was 15, but she seemed so much younger, fragile almost. She was quiet, barely said a word as she stood there with her bag, looking around like she was in a stranger's house, which I guess she was. I tried to smile to make her feel welcome, but it felt awkward. "What do you say to a daughter you've never met before?" I told her, "Hey Kelly, I'm your dad." It sounded so weird coming out of my mouth. She just nodded, still not saying much. There was this heavy silence between us, and I could tell she was just as lost as I was. The social worker, bless her, tried to break the ice by showing Kelly her room. I followed them, trying to gauge her reaction. She walked in, looked around, and just stood there for a moment. She didn't seem upset, but she wasn't exactly excited either. I think she was just overwhelmed. I mean, she had just been pulled out of everything she knew, and here she was in a stranger's house with a guy she was supposed to call dad. I told her she could do whatever she wanted with the room. Decorate it, move things around, whatever made her comfortable. She just nodded again. I could see she was holding back a lot, and I didn't want to push her too hard, so I let her be, figuring she needed some time to adjust. Over the next few days, I realized just how much she had been through. She was so quiet, so reserved. I could tell she wasn't used to anyone paying much attention to her. I would find her just sitting in her room, staring out the window, or lying on the bed, lost in her own thoughts. She was so different from what I had imagined. I mean, I had no idea what to expect, but seeing her like that broke my heart a little. I tried to make things easier for her. I set up a little snack box in her room because I noticed she wasn't eating much. I told her she could grab food from the kitchen any time, but that seemed to stress her out, so I figured having something in her room might help. I didn't want her to feel like she had to hide food or anything, but I could tell she was still adjusting to the idea of regular meals. We had our first real conversation a few days later. It was nothing deep, just small talk about the dogs, school, and stuff like that, but it was a start. She mentioned how much she loved reading, and how it helped her escape from reality. That hit me hard because it made me realize just how rough things must have been for her with her mom. I could see she was trying, but I could also see how much she was struggling. At night, I would hear her having nightmares. She would cry out, sometimes scream. It tore me apart hearing that, knowing there was so much pain inside her that I couldn't fix overnight. I decided then that I needed to get her some help. This wasn't something I could handle on my own. She needed someone to talk to, someone who could help her process everything she had been through. So, I started looking for a therapist, hoping that would give her some of the support she desperately needed. Looking back, those first few days were some of the hardest. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, trying to figure out how to be a father to a girl who had already been through so much. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to give up on her. She had been let down enough in her life. I was determined not to be just another disappointment. As the days turned into weeks, Kelly and I slowly started finding our rhythm, though it wasn't easy. She was still so guarded, so quiet, and every interaction felt like I was trying to crack a code. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, where I could see the walls she had built up start to come down, even if just a little. One afternoon, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and notebooks, doing her homework. It was such a simple scene, but it struck me because it was the first time I had seen her really focus on something since she moved in. I decided to sit down across from her, trying to find a way to connect without being overbearing. When she finished up, I noticed she had left a few papers scattered on the table. I asked her what they were, just making conversation, and she casually mentioned they were tests she had taken that week. I asked if I could see them, and she shrugged like it was no big deal. But when I looked at them, I was blown away. She had aced every single one: chemistry, history, geometry, straight A's. I was speechless for a moment. I mean, here was this girl who had been through hell, starting at a new school in the middle of a massive life upheaval, and she was nailing it. I couldn't help but tell her how proud I was. I said something like, "This is amazing, Kelly. You're really smart." She just shrugged again, trying to play it off like it was nothing, but I could see a flicker of pride in her eyes. She told me she liked to learn, that it was her way of escaping. That hit me hard. I realized then that for her, school was more than just a place to learn. It was a way to disconnect from everything else, all the chaos, all the pain. It was her safe space, and she was good at it, really good. But there were still moments that reminded me of just how deep her wounds ran. One night we went out for dinner, just something casual. I wasn't in the mood to cook, and I thought it might be nice for us to get out of the house. We ended up at this little Mexican place, and I found out she had never had tacos before. I couldn't believe it, but I guess it made sense given everything. We were having a pretty relaxed conversation, just chatting about the food and stuff, when a mom walked in with her two little girls. They were young, maybe 7 or 8, and they were all laughing and joking around. I could see Kelly watching them out of the corner of her eye, and suddenly she went quiet. The light in her eyes just dimmed, and I could see the pain there. I didn't say anything at first. I figured if she wanted to talk about it, she would. But on the way home, out of nowhere, she said, "Sometimes it's hard to see girls who have a good relationship with their moms. I get jealous because my mom and I never had that." I could hear the pain in her voice, and before I could say anything, she started crying. She just let it all out, and I felt so helpless. There was nothing I could say or do to take that pain away, and it killed me. When we got home, she said she wanted to be alone, so I gave her space. But hearing her cry in her room that night broke me. It was one of those moments where I realized just how deep her scars were. No matter how much I wanted to, I couldn't erase those 15 years she spent feeling unloved, unwanted. I could be there for her now, but I couldn't change what she had been through. That was a hard pill to swallow. I went to bed that night feeling so defeated. I kept thinking about all the ways I had failed her without even knowing she existed. And now, here she was, struggling with all this pain, and all I could do was try to be there for her. It didn't feel like enough, but it was all I had to give. The next morning, things were back to the way they had been, quiet, distant, but I knew that something had shifted between us. She had let me in, even if just a little. And I wasn't going to take that for granted. I just had to be patient, to keep showing her that I wasn't going anywhere, no matter how tough it got. I never imagined that things could get harder than they already were, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. We had just started to find a bit of a rhythm in our lives despite all the challenges. Kelly was slowly opening up, and while it wasn't easy, I felt like we were making progress. But then, out of nowhere, everything took a turn I never saw coming. It all started with Kelly feeling unusually tired. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured it was just the stress of everything she had been through. New home, new school, new life. But the fatigue didn't go away. Then she started losing weight, which worried me because she had already been so underweight when she first moved in. She also looked pale, almost sickly, and no matter how much I tried to feed her, she just wasn't eating like she should. We went to the doctor, who initially thought it was just a bad cold or some virus going around. But weeks passed, and Kelly wasn't getting any better. She was still so tired all the time, and that spark in her eyes that I had seen when she was talking about school and reading was gone. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my gut. After what felt like a million different doctor visits and tests, we finally got an answer. But it wasn't the one I was hoping for. Kelly was diagnosed with leukemia. I remember sitting in the doctor's office, hearing those words and feeling like the ground had just disappeared beneath me. Leukemia. My daughter, who had already been through so much, now had to fight this battle too. I was completely devastated. Kelly took the news in a way that just broke my heart even more. She was quiet, almost numb, and I could tell she was trying to process it all. I wanted to be strong for her, to say all the right things, but I was scared. Terrified, actually. I knew what this diagnosis meant. I had seen family members go through chemotherapy, and I knew how brutal it could be. The thought of Kelly having to endure that was almost too much to bear. We started chemotherapy almost immediately. The doctors were optimistic, but they also warned me that it would be a tough road ahead. Kelly was in and out of the hospital, and each time she came home, she seemed a little weaker, a little more distant. The chemo was taking its toll, not just physically, but mentally too. She started losing her hair, and the weight she had managed to gain after moving in with me melted away. She was so thin, so fragile, and there were days when she barely had the energy to get out of bed. She stopped reading, which I knew was a huge deal for her. Books had always been her escape, but now even that comfort was slipping away. I tried to suggest audiobooks, thinking maybe that could help, but she refused. It was like she was slowly giving up on the things she loved, and it scared me. Her emotions were all over the place, which I guess is understandable. Some days, she would be quiet, withdrawn, and other days, she would lash out at me for the smallest things. I knew it was the frustration, the anger at what was happening to her, but it still hurt. I did my best to be patient, to not take it personally, but I won't lie. There were moments when it got to me. Seeing her suffer and knowing there was nothing I could do to make it better was the most helpless feeling in the world. I kept reminding myself that she was just a kid, a 15-year-old girl who had already been through more than anyone should have to endure in a lifetime. And now, on top of everything else, she was fighting cancer. I wanted to take all her pain away, to somehow carry this burden for her, but I knew I couldn't. All I could do was be there, to hold her when she needed it, to give her space when she asked for it, and to let her know that no matter what, I wasn't going anywhere. The house felt so quiet during those days. The only sounds were the soft hum of the oxygen machine Kelly sometimes needed, and the occasional bark from one of the dogs. I tried to keep things as normal as possible, to give Kelly some sense of stability, but it was hard when everything felt so uncertain. The nights were the worst. I would lie awake, listening for any sound from Kelly's room, my heart racing every time I heard her stir. I knew she was in pain, both physically and emotionally, and it killed me that I couldn't take it away. There were moments when I would go into her room just to sit by her bed and watch her sleep, making sure she was still breathing, still there. Those were the moments when I felt the weight of everything crushing down on me, and I would have to step outside, just to get some air, to try and hold it together. I felt so many emotions all at once. Fear, anger, sadness, guilt. I kept thinking, why her? Why now? She had already been through so much, and now this. It just didn't seem fair, but I couldn't let her see how scared I was. I had to be strong for her sake. I had to believe that we would get through this, even on the days when it felt like the world was falling apart. The days turned into weeks, and then months. The chemo was brutal, but Kelly kept fighting. I tried to be there for her in every way I could, even when she pushed me away. And through it all, I kept hoping, kept praying that somehow, some way, we would find our way out of this nightmare. Tomorrow is a day that has been marked on my calendar for weeks now. It's the day my daughter will undergo a stem cell transplant. I've been dreading and anticipating this day in equal measure, knowing how crucial it is for her survival, but also terrified of the risks and challenges that come with it. This is the last major step in her treatment, the one that could finally give her a chance at a normal life, a life she deserves more than anyone I know. The last 3 months have been some of the hardest in my life, and I know they've been even harder for Kelly. Watching her go through chemotherapy, seeing her struggle, has been excruciating. She has been so strong, stronger than I think I could ever be, but there have been days when I've seen the fight leave her eyes, and those moments have been the hardest to bear. Today, as we prepare for the transplant, I've tried to make things as normal as possible. I know that sounds ridiculous given everything, but I just want her to feel some sense of peace, even if it's only for a little while. So, we've spent the day surrounded by family, people who love her, who want to see her get better. My parents came over, as did my sister and her kids. Everyone brought little gifts, nothing big, just small things to make Kelly smile. It's been a day filled with love and support, and I think it's helped take her mind off what's coming. We've been spoiling Kelly all day. She deserves it. I made her favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries and whipped cream. It's a simple thing, but she hasn't had much of an appetite lately, so seeing her eat and enjoy it was like a small victory. Then we spent the morning, watching her favorite movies, just lounging on the couch with the dogs curled up beside us. There were moments when I would catch her smiling, genuinely smiling, and for a few hours, it felt like we were just a normal father and daughter, not two people who have had to deal with more than their fair share of pain. In the afternoon, we took a walk around the neighborhood. Kelly has always loved being outside, feeling the sun on her face, the wind in her hair. She's been too weak to go far lately, but today she insisted on walking a bit further. We didn't talk much, we didn't need to. Just being together, feeling the fresh air. It was enough. I held her hand the whole time, and it reminded me of when she first came to live with me, how distant she was then, how unsure of everything. But now, despite everything, we're closer than I ever thought we could be. As the day went on, I could see the reality of what tomorrow means starting to weigh on her. She got quieter, more withdrawn, and I could tell she was scared. So was I, but I tried to keep things light, to keep her spirits up. We talked about what we would do once she got better, places we would go, things we would do together. She's always wanted to visit the ocean, to see the waves and feel the sand between her toes. I promised her that we would go as soon as she was strong enough. It's a promise I intend to keep no matter what. Tonight, as I sit here watching her sleep, I can't help but feel overwhelmed by everything. The house is quiet, everyone has gone home, and it's just the two of us again. I'm trying to stay positive, to believe that this transplant will work, that it will be the thing that finally turns everything around. But I'm also scared of what tomorrow will bring, scared of what could go wrong. I keep thinking about all the moments that have led up to this one. The day I found out I had a daughter, the day she moved in with me, the first time she called me Dad. It's incredible how much my life has changed in such a short time, how much she has come to mean to me. I can't imagine a future without her, and that's what scares me the most. But despite all the fear, there is also hope. Hope that this transplant will work. Hope that Kelly will finally be able to start living the life she deserves. She's been through so much, more than anyone should ever have to go through, and she's fought every step of the way. I know she's tired. I know she's scared. But I also know that she's strong, stronger than she even realizes. Tomorrow, we start a new chapter, a chapter that I hope will lead to healing, to a future where Kelly can do all the things she's always dreamed of. It won't be easy, I know that, but as I sit here holding her hand, I know that we will face whatever comes together. And no matter what happens, I'll be right here by her side every step of the way. So, as we head into tomorrow, I'm holding on to that hope, holding on to the belief that we will get through this, that Kelly will get through this. Because she deserves to live, to experience the world, to have a future filled with love and happiness, and I will do everything in my power to make sure she gets that chance. As I sit here in the quiet of the night with Kelly sleeping just down the hall, I find myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions that I can barely put into words. It's strange how life can change so completely in such a short time. Just a few months ago, I was living a simple life, content with my routine, my dogs, and the predictable rhythm of my days. Now I'm a father to a 15-year-old girl who has become the center of my world. The weight of that responsibility, the love, the fear, and the hope all mixed together in a way that sometimes feels too much to bear. I think about the moment I first learned about Kelly, how it felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. That shock hasn't entirely faded. Even now, there are moments when I catch myself wondering how this is my life, how I went from being alone to having this incredible, fragile, brilliant daughter who depends on me. I'm terrified of letting her down. She's been through so much, more than any child should ever have to endure. And the thought that I might not be enough for her, that I might fail her in some way, keeps me awake at night. I want to be her rock, her safe place. But there are times when I feel like I'm barely holding myself together. The love I feel for her is overwhelming. It's not something I was prepared for, this fierce, protective instinct that makes me want to shield her from every hurt, every fear. When I see her smile, even just a little, it's like the world lights up. But when I see her in pain, whether it's from the chemo or the memories of her past, it cuts me deeper than anything I've ever known. I keep thinking about all the years I missed, all the moments I wasn't there for her, and it fills me with a guilt I can't shake. I know it's not rational, I didn't even know she existed, but that doesn't stop the ache in my chest when I think about what she went through without me. Tomorrow's transplant looms over me like a storm cloud. I'm holding on to hope with everything I have, believing that this could be the turning point, the moment that gives Kelly the chance to live the life she deserves. But the fear is always there, whispering in the back of my mind. What if it doesn't work? What if she has to keep fighting, keep suffering? I try to push those thoughts away, to focus on the strength I see in her every day, but they creep in anyway. I've never felt so powerless, yet at the same time, I've never been so determined to keep going, to be there for her no matter what. There's a strange kind of beauty in this chaos, though. Despite all the pain, despite the uncertainty, I've found a purpose I didn't know I was missing. Kelly has changed me in ways I can't fully explain. She's taught me what it means to love someone unconditionally, to show up even when it's hard, even when I'm scared. I look at her, and I see this incredible person, so strong, so smart, so full of potential, and I'm in awe that she's my daughter. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing for certain: I'll fight for her with everything I have. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. It's all worth it for her, because she's worth it.